Pat, you take it now.
Hello and welcome to the Good Old Days, our Raynham program focusing on the history of Raynham. I'm Pat Riley and our host is retired selectman Don McKinnon. And Don, you have brought two very special guests with you today.
I'm very glad that they accepted our invitation. George Carney, legendary, and David Flynn, also legendary. So I got two legends, so we got a half hour to talk a little bit. But let me explain to you, first of all, my grand scheme of things. When someone asks me to explain Raynham, I say it's like a baseball diamond, that Taunton's home base, and then you come up left and right. On the right is the industrial, which is Raynham Woods, and on the left is what we would call the track. And so I think one of the reasons that the slots is going to be looked on favorably, but it's debatable, but the reason I think it's favorable is that what I said to Bart Perini, I don't know if you knew him, George, but,
No, I really
but the
didn't.
Perini brothers were pretty famous. They owned the Braves at one time,
Yes.
Perinis. And I said to them, as long as you're well, see that park up there was Jordan Marsh site. I said, as long as people are educated to it. Well, that's the same way with the track. The track is educated, the town is educated to gaming at that location. So I think that's coming up that way. That's consistent with the park itself.
Well, it's funny that you should mention about the park that you're talking about out there. My wife's uncle at one time owned that Coleman, Bill Coleman from Coleman Brothers, and they developed that park out there with the anticipation that that would be the same as the type of the park at Braintree Shopping Center.
In Jordan
But it
Marsh
was
site.
At the Jordan Marsh
That's
site.
absolutely true.
But they did all the site work there,
Yeah.
and they prepared it, and
Coleman was the
Coleman
name?
Brothers, and that was her uncle. And the thing just never materialized because, as I think they got caught in an up and down in the economy. And the result of the thing was, as they got older and they passed, eventually passed away, and the company changed hands, and it was sold to different developers.
And we
I
used to
don't-
call it the Jordan Marsh site.
That was intended. They did all the site work
Yeah.
with the intention that Jordan Marsh was going to build a store
Absolutely.
there, and they were going to add on and make it a shopping center similar to the one they have up here in Braintree. But it just never materialized. But anyway, it's funny that you should mention
Yeah,
that. And I
because
should know a little bit about that site, because that was what the intention was. But anyway, at Raynham, as far as I can see, that we have a great location. We've had one for, we have like 125 acres, and with the road improvements over the period of time, with 495 being completed and 24 being completed, it really just happened to wind up in a great location for what we also had when the Raynham dog track was running with live racing. It was we had the honor of having the biggest track handle of any dog track in the world, because we used to have a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. We used to do better than $1 million a day there, and between the day and the night is one of those things. But to give you a little history about the track, when I first started back in 1942, my father was involved with Martin Cunningham. He was a resident of the town of Raynham, and at that time had a lot of influence in the town. And he had the farm where Ryan Iron is now. He had a beautiful home and beautiful barn there, and he was a cattle dealer and bought and sold horses, and was very well respected in the town. I can remember back as a young fella that the Hall family, they more or less ran the town of Raynham. And as far as when I was finding my way to get over here today, I would buy some beautiful homes that I know my father would have loved to thought that there was be developed to this extent, which at that particular time there was, it was really country living, and it was sort of, I don't think they had probably 2,500 residents at the town. And in fact, they picked their location where the track is because it was close to the Hockomock Swamp, and it didn't affect anybody's house. And Martin Cunningham owned the property adjacent to it, so he was a supporter, and they started that with the understanding that they did $100,000 a day in business, and at that time they only were scheduled to run 50 days, not to the
Well, that's
extent-
right, 50 days.
Right, so anyway, for many
People
years.
don't understand that
it
was a
started there.
50-day operation.
And I worked there. I started there in 1942 when I was 14 years old as a lead boy. Believe it or not, making $14 a night. At that time, people around today would think they couldn't just, really relate to what it was at that time. If you were fortunate and had a job working at WPA, that was under Franklin Roosevelt. If you got between $18 and $20, the ones that got 20 usually was straw boss, and the majority of them got 18. And as far as the thing was concerned, so people just don't realize how great this country has become in the last 50 to 75 years. When I look back at my age, I've probably seen the best of the country, as a matter of fact, but I've seen the times when it was tough living and people didn't have work, and at that time there was no unemployment and there was no Social Security. If you were poor then, you were just plain poor. But anyway, to stay on the as far as the track situation is concerned, it was always a place for employment. I was more or less was brought up in the town of Raynham, even though we lived in Brockton. We spent so much time here as kids because it was like a second home to us. We were, when the grandstand was being built, we were playing around it, and we just watched it develop. And then I was fortunate enough in 1966 when my father was involved with Russ Murray, he and my father and 3 or 4 other people, they ran it together. And I was fortunate enough at that particular time to take control of the company, and I've been having it under control ever since. And through time, I bought out a lot of the former partners because at that time I had age going in my favor. Now it's in reverse. But anyway, I've been fortunate enough to spend a lot of time in Raynham, and I feel this way here. The people in Raynham know what to expect from the Carney family because we've been here a long time. And I'd love to have been able to tell people that my intention of having a slot parlor back 10 or 12 years ago was almost like it was a dream that was going to come true. But every time you thought the dream was going to come true, there was another obstacle in the way. But I lived long enough to see it come true. So now, at least I got a chance to apply for a license and bring the slots to the town of Raynham, which I think will be a great boost to the economy here. It will create a lot of jobs for the people that live here. It'll get a lot of people back to work that used to work here when the dog track was running live racing. And I made a commitment to those people. Well, if I get back and running again, they would have given an opportunity to go back to work if they wanted to. And as a matter of fact, like I say, is the town has been good to the Carney family for a long while, and I want to hopefully build something that long after I'm gone will be a great asset to the town of Raynham, and be a place for people that live in the area to be employed and be able to raise their family. And as far as the thing is concerned, we have a great relationship with the fire department. We have a great relationship with the police department. We have a great relationship with the town fathers in the town of Raynham, and they've been very kind to us in the past. And I expect it to continue on with the same way, where we'll have a strong base for the people that will be supporting us, and we will keep as many people as we possibly can working, and that's what my objective is. And I also plan in our policy of hiring. We're going to take care of the people in Raynham first, and then people in Taunton, and the people in Brockton, because that's basically where the people will come from. And then on top of that, I intend to give veterans preference, because that's something I think that people begin kind of overlooking. But I think by that way there, we should put together a good game plan, and one that hopefully will be successful, Don.
George, the track when it began, were you or your dad in it from day one, or did your dad buy a track that was ongoing?
No, he was in it from day one.
Day one.
As a matter of fact, he got a man that lived in the town of Raynham by the name of Tommy Kearns, who was well connected in the town. As a matter of fact, I think he was in the liquor business. He might have been in the liquor business during Prohibition, but he had a beautiful home here. I would hopefully someday we'll be able to talk. Somebody can tell me where it was, and I'd like to just to go buy it for old time's sake.
Yeah.
But he and Martin Cunningham were more or less in the Hall family. They more or less controlled the town, and my father was very friendly with this Tommy Kearns, who introduced him to the Halls, and they came up. At one time, they were going to build a track originally down here, 106 and 138, which was it eventually became, well, the state police had a barracks there, and the town of Easton didn't want it, so they just moved down the road and came into the town of Easton. And matter of fact, I can remember back many, many years ago when I was young that the dog track bought the first police cruiser for the town of Raynham, which was a big thing at that particular time. So we've had a great history in the town, and we've watched the town grow. I own a lot of property out here in Power Street. sometimes I have a problem finding my way out there. But anyway.
I think one of your nephews lives out around
My
there.
nephew, Dennis Carney, lives out
Dennis
there.
lives out there.
Yes, he has a big farm out
He'll
there.
tell you how
and,
to get there. Set the
anyway,
thing.
as far
You
as
set that thing and tell you how to get
So
there.
he can, but I bought it for a long time. I couldn't even find it. But anyway, it wasn't because of old age. It was I just never had a chance to get out in that area. But I get out to see him once in a
Didn't
while.
we think, George, at one time that 495 and 24 was going to be a cloverleaf, and then Taunton got the exit off of Bay Street, and didn't that kill that plan?
That kind of killed the thing. And
But wasn't that the master plan?
Yes,
We
and
can
I-
tell them now.
well, I'll tell you the funny part about it. You talk about 495. The late, well, he's still alive. Jim Kelly was a state senator from Committee of Chairman of Ways and Means, and he and I were great friends. So at that particular time, 495 was stuck at Route 1. They couldn't come through the swamp area there, and
They were up in Mansfield.
Up in Mansfield, you know, you just have to come out 106
Oh,
all the
Peter,
way.
David, wasn't your
Yeah, my brother was the author of
So-
the way it ended
that
up.
brought that in?
Right.
Anyway, to make a long story short, Kelly said to me one day, you know, and John Ames, the third and fourth from Easton,
Yeah,
he was
a rep.
opposed to it because he was very much involved in environmental things. And
I
he-
didn't know that.
Oh, yeah, he was up in arms about
He
the-
was only in there for like 2 terms.
That was enough. And anyway,
Yeah, I do. I hit a nerve. George,
He was a good state rep. He was a couple of times. He was environmental.
But he was a
Yeah.
Republican.
he and I was,
But that
we
explains
had two
it.
different ends of the equation. That wasn't.
He was
wasn't a
related.
bad guy,
He
but-
was related to the original owner of Raynham.
Oh, that's- oh, he is
positively,
in that
yeah.
family.
Oh, yeah.
I called his house one
And,
night and he was out mowing the lawn. I says to his wife, "John Ames is mowing a lawn. What the heck?"
So anyway, he and I used to do a little sparring around up there on Beacon Hill, and he was opposed to coming to complete 495.
He was opposed.
Oh yes, because
was
he
our rep? Oh,
yes,
don't tell
he
me
was
that. Oh, my
opposed to that.
goodness.
And
Oh.
anyway, but I was fortunate to have Jim Kelly. He came from Oxford, up in the Worcester area, and he put it through. Dukakis was putting the tax bill through,
Yeah.
and he put it in the bill. And he said, "George, keep your mouth shut if you can."
Yeah.
And after 30 days, it becomes law, and just go and call the Commissioner of Public Works and ask him when he's going to start the project. And he won't know what the hell you're talking about, but tell him anyways. And he'll find out it's in the
Yeah.
bond bill.
Yeah.
And it was in the bond issue was that was part of it that had to be completed because they showed where the revenue along 495.
Yeah.
was.
Wow.
But, you know, which is down the Taunton Industrial Park on this side of it.
Yeah.
And so it was one of those things. And
Well, the Taunton Industrial Park's one of the largest in the East Coast.
That's right. And the funny part about it,
And ours is in Chopped Liver,
And
Raynham
I
Woods.
haven't told that story to anybody because there was no reason to tell it, but I kind of watched that unfold as far as the thing was concerned.
Well, David, where did Peter come into this, though?
Well, actually, Jim Kelly
Peter, you know Peter.
Jim didn't put it in the bond bill. My brother did because all bond bills have to originate in the House, but Jim Kelly carried it through and brought it to fruition. That's what happened. They both served at the same time.
They were both in
yeah.
the.
Didn't Peter
But I
go to
was working
Washington,
too.
too, though? I thought Peter went
No.
to Washington.
he
all
never
handled
went to
statewide.
Peter took my place when I went and governed the Caucasus cabinet.
Right.
Yeah, he took my place.
David, am I wrong? Years ago, I worked in Rentham, and Blackstone was one of my territories. There was a city clerk there that told me his son-in-law, and there's 4 guys in the house that's raising hell in Boston. They're really going crazy, and it was his son-in-law. It was Michael Dukakis, and it was a young guy from Bridgewater named David Flint. Is
They
that not
did.
true?
They did. I have it. They have
Oh,
a
for the
glove
history, is that
article
not true?
with
You're
a
one of those 4.
picture of
George,
they
they
call
called
us
him
the
a rabble rouser.
no, they call us the Young Turks. That's
All
the
right,
title of it,
okay,
yeah.
that's it.
I have them in
That's your
Bradford.
story, and you're sticking to
I'm
it.
sticking to it.
Oh yeah, and I can
yeah.
tell you this. I was very close to Tom McGee, the late
Yeah.
speaker.
Yeah, he
And
was
they
a-
were,
he
the
was in
4
for
of
a
them,
long time.
They
They-
were sitting up there like pros on a line.
What you call a pain in the
Him
butt?
and
Yeah.
Bobby Creedon.
Yeah.
And the fellow from over there from Norwood.
Dave.
Dave. No.
David Hearn.
Dave Ahern, and
He didn't become the
Flynn,
dean
sat
by
next to
accident.
me, and there was 2 or 3 others.
Well, you called him a
And-
crow, and he
Oh,
called, what'd
that
you
was-
call yourself, a Turk?
That was-
Well, don't
The
be
Mongols called us the Young Turks.
So anyway, I called them worse than that because on Thursday we used
These
to
two
try
didn't
to.
always get along, Pat.
Oh no! And on Thursdays, I used to try to get something through. It would be an informal session,
Yeah.
and of course they'd be sitting up back, and as soon as a bill started to be moved, they'd object, call it a challenge in the House, and of course you couldn't do
What,
anything
our
about
quiet
it.
friend
They're down
David
a-
would do that,
Oh, they're
George?
down a quorum, and anyway.
Oh,
you
it
know,
breaks my
yeah,
heart
so.
to hear that, because the
Oh,
guy
I'm
in
sure.
Blackstone said that the four were very quiet gentlemen and they never bothered anybody. You say they were crows.
Oh, that was a good description.
Mr. Carney, when the track was at its prime, how
Yes.
many people did you employ?
Honestly, I couldn't tell you. Probably 500 or 600 full and part time.
Really?
Yeah, and we had, of course, with the people that handled the dogs, they were not direct employees of
Right.
ours, but they were working there because of us. And then we always did our own cleaning, and in house, and our own bartenders, and we all ran our own food concessions. We kept all the jobs in stock, and we printed our own programs, and we ran most of our own for services to keep the money intact. So
Sure.
we had more employees than normal. Racework would, because most of them they catered out to a catering company like Delaware North or something like that. And we printed our own programs, and we did everything we could to keep the money internally.
And in addition to the employment factor, Dawn, you can explain how it helped the town of Raynham by having the track.
Well, Raynham, when the track was at its peak, but I mean, this goes back to what we would say the track was at its peak, because the track was at its peak when it got year-round racing.
Yes.
Right.
But what we're historically talking about right now, when they had 50 dates, you couldn't move on 138 when that traffic was coming up.
Right.
It was bumper to bumper people. And
At that time, we opened up on April 18th. That was as soon as you could open up. That was the first time. And then dog racing in the state of Massachusetts at that time ended October 31st.
it was like a seasonal liquor
Right.
license, they
Yeah.
have those.
And then they ran 100 days. And Taunton down the street from here, they ran 50, and we ran 50. And it was a long time. It wasn't until Dave Bartley was the speaker that the Commonwealth needed money that they decided if we opened it up.
Was that in the 60s, George?
Yeah, well, I think it was in, say, 69 or 70.
But prior to that, it was 50 days.
And that was it. When I took over in 1966, it was 50 days. And then we ran the Middleborough Fair there for 6 days. So it gave us 56 days. And
For a while, didn't you have the Brockton
I did.
Fair?
I had the Brockton Fair run at Brockton. I got a bad tax bill through the legislature. So I moved the Brockton Fair from Brockton over to Raynham, and we ran it there for a number of years. And at one time, I also owned the Weymouth Fair, and I moved that from Weymouth to Foxborough, to the trotting track. And Ian Lowe was tough to get your money from, so I chased him around a couple of years, and at that time, he was famous for not paying. And I finally...
The movie magnate?
Oh, yeah, but he had plenty of money, it was just didn't like to pay. So anyway, I convinced the legislature that we were gonna move it to Raynham, and it's based on tax revenue, so the state, every time that the state needed more money, they gave us more dates. That was about the
Then
size
you
of it.
merged with Taunton, though. Did Taunton
Yes.
close down because it didn't do any business?
No, it closed
Because
down
its
after
location
we
was a
got-
little tough, George.
Well, after we got 495,
That's what I meant.
Joe Lindsay maintained, we cut him off at the pass, that's what
Yeah,
he said.
yeah.
And,
Well, that wouldn't be like you, George.
Oh, not a bit,
No.
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 And
Misunderstand.
just didn't understand it. Route 44 was an absolute, old-fashioned road. There was a lot of houses, and it was just bad for traffic. And anyway, so as part of the
But then you changed the name,
when Raynham
Taunton Dog
so
Track. Yeah.
we bought him out,
Yeah.
fortunately, and
Yeah.
it's been history.
George, wasn't the dog track, though, we took offense that outer areas closed down racing, but wasn't it reversing itself? And if they had let it alone over a period of time, it probably would have
Well, I'll tell you,
ended-
to be honest with you,
maybe, yeah.
give you an honest answer on
Yeah.
that. For all the years we were around, if it hadn't have been for the slot machines in the state of Connecticut, the people just wanted a change. It was one of those things that first of all, is when it started off, the horses were the king.
Yeah.
But it took so much time, 25 or 30 minutes between races. And then the dogs came along, they were running 12 to 15, it was faster action. And younger people were running, younger people were going there, it was more attractive, it was a nighttime sport. And anyway, it was one of those things that people wanted to change as far as the thing was concerned. And it probably, it wasn't going to be as strong as it was at one time, but the thing that really put it on the skids was the competition from led you down in with the slots, and the fact that they could give away so much more, for promotional things like that. And we were tied in with a heavy tax that we could never get out from underneath.
But some of the people still come to your
Oh, yeah.
location
Oh,
from
yeah.
days gone by. Richard Murphy, who has a TV show in Easton, I mentioned him, he's from Stoughton, and he went to the track still, last time I talked to him. He still
We do
went to
a
the
good
track.
business. Believe it or not, we do a good business
Yeah.
there, and we pay to the
It's
Commonwealth.
social, people want to.
Oh yeah, they come there, and
Yeah.
we have a lot of older people that come there. They have nowhere to go, and not they have nowhere to go, but they come to see about. They meet their friends there. and
That's right.
If somebody doesn't show up today, they wonder, well, he must be sick, or
Yeah.
then they,
It's like a
it's
club.
a clubhouse, and we keep the price of the food down so they can enjoy themselves. And
Yeah.
there's no pressure on them. If they want to bet $2, they can. If they want to bet $5, and we kind of have a very friendly atmosphere there, and all the people have been working there for years. Most
In the
of them.
meantime, you keep,
And not only that, we get a few new ones, and it works in and out. And as far as like I say, and then we had a big day for the Kentucky Derby. We had a big day for the Preakness, and we had a big day for the Belmont.
So
Don,
sometimes I
there's
go
one
by.
interesting thing talking about taxes. Now, Suffolk today has horse racing. Foxborough, not Foxborough. Plainridge has harness racing.
do they
And
still harness
Sure,
race?
3 days a week.
Yeah.
But
I've never been to a
Raynham-
harness race.
track, simulcasting,
Yeah.
Raynham pays more taxes to the state than Plainridge and Suffolk, even today with no
And
live
Suffolk
racing.
too.
Wow.
That speaks pretty well of the location there.
Didn't I hear, though, that at one time even the buying of lottery tickets in Raynham was like second in the state
There
or
was only
something,
one
George?
place ahead of us up on the Mass New Hampshire line.
And
were
except
the
for that, we would,
Number one. Yeah, we were the second to that.
So doesn't that tell you that people that gamble, gamble?
Mm.
You'd say, well, they're going to go to the track, they won't buy slots. Lottery. Yes, they do, and they did.
Oh, we had a lot of I'll tell you, we had one time, we had more $1 million winners there than any other
Wow.
establishment there
Yeah,
was. As a matter
yeah.
of fact, there was quite, because we did such a volume of business.
That's right, the
that
percentages.
The percentages, we
Yeah,
had to,
yeah.
we just had to be up on the top. And we still do a big lottery business, and we do probably $18,000 to $20,000 a week in lottery sales.
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
Now, Don, you were at the selectmen's meeting last night, and the selectmen voted to approve the request, and now it's going to a ballot vote.
That's correct.
In August,
Okay, in
right.
August. And what happens at that point, Mr. Carney?
Well, at that point, the people are given the opportunity to vote. Do they want it or do they not want it? As far as the thing is concerned, and the nice part about that is that we're going to be, I believe, at the same time, they're going to have an override here, and we're going to be paying the town of Raynham a minimum of $1 million a year, plus the real estate tax bill is estimated between $3 and $4 million. I don't want to say 4, and it should have been 3, but I'm not sure just.
Did you say
what it is.
5, George?
Between either 3 or 4, and an extra $1 million on that, then we're gonna pay, extra $100,000 here, and then $15,000 a year for something to make study on businesses on 138. Whatever they wanted, even Mrs. Smith was happy that she said she got everything she wanted in the bill, which was, I was happy to make her happy to, as far as she's been on the board a long time. And then there was something about one of the streets that she wanted to do a survey on, Gilmore Street or something. It's up the other side of the Hennessy, not Hennessy, but the Hess Station up in that area. There was some question. So everything that everybody asked for was able to be taken care of.
Now, if the voters approve,
Yes.
then you have to wait for state approval?
That's right. Then we have to. Then right now there's 4 applicants for the same one for the one license. One applicant filed for Worcester, and they got turned down by the city council. Where they're going to go someplace else, nobody knows. And there was one up in Danvers that was going to go up to the shopping center there, at the Liberty Tree, I believe. She was made, and they got turned down. So I don't know where they're going. And so it's just right now, 2 with no location and 2 us in Plainridge. So it's that's what the competition's coming from. In other words, I think we'd probably, I'm not saying the other 2 won't find a location, but right now, the 2 have a location, is us and Plainridge. And
who makes the final decision on behalf of the state?
the Gaming Commission.
Okay. I would imagine it holds a lot of weight if the local community is supportive.
Oh, you got to have a support of the local.
Yeah.
First, we had to have the selectmen approve us. That was step number 1. Now we have to go back. We have to wait 60 days, and then have the people who live in the town support it. And I think, you know, with what we're paying with the real estate taxes and the jobs and the fact that, you know, the people know what to expect from the county family. I've been here a long while. The family has anyway.
Don't you have to have some approval, not necessarily, but don't you have to work with contiguous communities, the Bridgewaters, the Eastons, the
Right. We have to
Taunton,
work
West
with,
Bridgewater?
with whoever they decide. I'd say probably West Bridgewater because of 138, and I'm not even sure if that would qualify. Easton, I'm pretty sure would qualify. Taunton would qualify, and I believe that would be about the 3, and maybe possibly on Bridgewater, but I don't think we'd have much effect on Bridgewater because it's 104
Right.
from the nip on. I mean, but we have to work out with them and see how that is. But
So if everything gets approved, what's your vision? What would you like to see there?
Well, I'd
Obviously,
like
you have
to
the slot
see-
machines, you're going to have
Right,
restaurants.
yeah, we're gonna have restaurants, slot machines, but right now I'm working with a big company that has movie theaters, you know, and the leading one in the area. I haven't signed an agreement with them yet, but we're talking. I'm gonna meet with them later this week. And then we're also talking with a company about putting a hotel. And then I have talked with a couple of people on the, you know, that are well named in the sporting world. I wanna mention their name because we haven't signed with them. But to have a couple of restaurants that they would run and own, and we'd lease them, you know, charge them rent.
Isn't the commitment for about $125 million to be?
Well, that's a minimum of
spent?
125, we'll well exceed that.
I know, Don, that's not history, but our inquiring
Well,
viewers want to
that's
know.
what they want to know within this
Right,
half hour,
right.
because we'll be back again at
Yes.
another date. We're getting pretty close to it, but
Right,
that's
no.
the crux that we have to. We feel fair because somebody wants to come in and do the other side. They can do it if they, you know. But we wanted to hear from George.
And obviously, the
His-
track has had a huge history, part of Raynham's history over the years.
It's part of the chemistry of the town.
Yeah, absolutely.
Say industrial.
And we
farm.
have about a minute left, I believe.
Another thing that's sort of important, I mean, I don't know what's gonna happen, I'm not pushing it one way or the other, but we worked out in the event that the train does come through, that we've dedicated a piece of the property for that. And I worked out with the people from the South Rail that we weren't gonna go the eminent domain route, that we'd work out, you know, through mutual, whatever they wanna do. We said we'd build a small shopping center there, where people would get off the train and on the train with, you know, like a Fernandes or something like that, but Tedeschi's not Fernandes. You know, have some, but they tell us who they want in there and what they,
Right.
whatever it is, and, you know, it's one of those things that's up in which was the kennel area, because that we own both sides of the rail line there. And part of the other side, we've agreed with them that if they have to, in other words, the state will take over and they will flood that out to make up for what they're losing in the, coming through the Hockomock Swamp.
Sure.
It's the same way as they did up in the western part of the state when they put the place for the water up in there. It's the name of the town slipped my mind, but they put 2 towns underwater. If you remember back many years ago, when they put the thing together to supply the city of Boston. So we have a good relationship with the woman that's running that, and I can't say whether they'll ever get the funding or they won't. But in the event, if it does come, our position is that we will work with them, and the parking would be up in that park where it used to be with the kennels for the dogs.
Okay, very good. Dave, I know while you served as our state representative, you were pushing hard for the slot machines, and it's been a long time in process, but I guess it's finally coming to a decision one way
Well,
or another.
I'm pleased, not just for the town of Raynham, but over a period of so many years, I became so friendly with the people that work there. And the opportunity to see some of those people come back, they used to look at me pleadingly, and can you do something, Representative Dave? Thanks for trying. And I left rather heartsick. It didn't come to fruition. So I'm very pleased with the progress, and I just hope that George County prevails for the betterment of Raynham, the people employed there in the contiguous towns. You can't find a family that didn't have someone work there for the past 50 or 60 years.
Okay, very good. Don, I think we're just about out
I
of
think
time.
we've done it, Pat, yes.
And we want to thank our guest, George Carney, and
Thank you,
retired
George.
State Rep Dave Flynn, Don McKinnon, our host, and thank all of you for joining with us. Come back. We're going to have these gentlemen back again for another episode of The Good Old Days.